The medical scanner hummed as it passed over Daiwan's body for the third time that morning. He stood perfectly still on the platform, arms outstretched, while the Galactic Coalition's doctors studied every aspect of his biology. Around him, the other human crew members waited their turn. They had traveled across the galaxy for this moment. Humanity's first official assignment with the Coalition fleet. Jiwoo watched from the observation deck above. She was one of the few humans with actual Coalition training, having studied xenobiology on 3 different worlds. Even she found the process uncomfortable. The alien doctors spoke to each other in their own languages, occasionally glancing at the humans like they were examining broken tools. Bone density 40% below Vex standard, one of the reptilian doctors announced. His name was Tharak and he commanded the security division. His scales gleamed under the bright lights as he reviewed the data on his tablet. Muscle fiber composition suggests low impact resistance. Skin offers no protection against plasma or energy weapons. Another doctor, an insectoid female named Kilnara, clicked her mandibles thoughtfully. Their reaction time is adequate but not exceptional. No natural armor plating, no venom glands, no enhanced sensory organs. She looked at Jiwoo through the glass. I find it remarkable that this species achieved space travel at all. Jiwoo kept her expression neutral, but her hands formed fists at her sides. The examinations continued for hours. By the time they finished, the verdict was clear. Humans were the weakest species currently serving in the Coalition military. The official report listed them below even the Quillari, a species of small amphibious creatures who at least had the advantage of being able to breathe underwater and secrete a mild paralytic through their skin. They're fragile, Tharak said during the command briefing that evening. Day 1 sat in the back of the room with the other humans, listening as their fate was decided. We cannot risk them in combat operations. I recommend assigning them to support roles exclusively. What kind of support roles? Asked Admiral Vorn, a massive crystalline being who commanded the entire sector fleet. Medical support, engineering support, food services. Tharak pulled up a holographic display showing human physical capabilities compared to other Coalition species. Every chart showed humans near the bottom. They lack the strength for heavy combat. They lack the speed for reconnaissance. They lack the durability for frontline operations. Daewon raised his hand. Commander Tharak, with respect, we trained for combat roles. Your military fights other humans, Tharak interrupted. His yellow eyes fixed on Daewon with something that might have been pity. You have never faced a Krell berserker. You have never fought a Thorian in full armor. Your weapons are primitive. Your tactics are designed for opponents as weak as you are. The other aliens in the room made sounds of agreement. Some were clicks, some were hums, some were growls. But they all meant the same thing. The humans did not belong here. We can prove ourselves, Daewon said, standing now. His voice stayed calm even though anger burned in his chest. Give us a chance. I will not sacrifice lives to satisfy your pride, Tharak said. Discussion over. Humans will serve in support capacity until further notice. The meeting ended. The humans filed out of the command center in silence. In the hallway, young Me, one of the engineers, kicked the wall hard enough to dent the metal panel. This is garbage. We came all this way to serve drinks and fix toilets. We knew it might be difficult, Jiwoo said quietly. We're the newcomers. We have to earn their respect. How? Hyunwoo asked. He was their best pilot, capable of flying anything from old Earth shuttles to modern Coalition frigates. They won't let us do anything except stay out of the way. Daewon looked at his fellow humans. There were 20 of them on this ship. 20 out of a crew of 300. They had been so proud when they received their assignments. Earth's finest sent to represent humanity among the stars. Now they were considered barely useful. We do our jobs, Daewon said. We do them better than anyone else. We show them what humans can do, even if it's not what we wanted to do. The next 2 weeks were humiliating. The humans were assigned to the least important tasks on the ship. Day 1, who had trained as a security officer, found himself organizing supply inventories. Young Mai and the other engineers were given maintenance work that the alien crew considered beneath them. Hyunwoo was allowed to fly, but only cargo shuttles on the safest routes. Jiwoo at least got to work in medical, but even there she faced constant dismissal. When she suggested a new treatment protocol for radiation exposure, the head doctor laughed. Your species has barely left your own solar system. What could you possibly teach us about radiation treatment? The only one who seemed interested in the humans was Quilnara. The insectoid scientist often observed them during their duties, taking notes on her datapad. One day, Jiwoo found her in the medical bay during the night shift. "You're studying us," Jiwoo said. It wasn't a question. "Yes?" Quilnara's mandibles clicked in what might have been embarrassment. "I hope you don't mind. Your species is unusual." "Unusually weak, you mean? Unusually contradictory." Quilnara pulled up some data on her screen. "Your stress response patterns are different from any species I've studied. When most species face danger, their bodies prepare them for either fighting or running away. But your chemistry does something else, something more complex." Jiwoo looked at the charts. She saw her own bioscan data from the examination weeks ago. "What do you mean?" "I'm not certain yet," Quilnara admitted. "But I find it interesting that a species as physically limited as yours survived long enough to reach the stars. Most weak species on your planet went extinct, yet humans thrived. There must be a reason." Before Jiwoo could respond, alarms blared throughout the ship. Red lights flashed in the corridors. Every crew member's communicator activated simultaneously. "All hands combat alert." Admiral Vorn's voice boomed through the speakers. "We have received a distress signal from mining colony Theta 7. Krell raiding fleet has breached the station. All combat personnel report to deployment bays immediately." Daewon was in the cargo hold when the alarm sounded. He dropped the inventory tablet and ran toward the armory. If there was going to be a fight, he wanted to be part of it. He didn't care what Tharok said. He had trained his entire adult life for combat. He wasn't going to sit on the ship while people died. He reached the armory to find it already crowded with alien soldiers suiting up in armor and checking weapons. Daewon pushed through to the equipment lockers. "What are you doing here?" Tharok's voice cut through the noise. The Vex commander stood blocking the path, his armor already sealed. "Humans are to remain on the ship. Those are Coalition citizens down there," Daewon said. "We can help. You would die in the first 30 seconds. Tharok's voice wasn't cruel. If anything, he sounded tired. "The Krell are savage fighters. They are 3 times your size and feel no pain. They will tear you apart. I cannot allow it. Then what are we supposed to do? Stay alive. Keep the ship running. That is how you help." Tharok turned away. "Lock down the human quarters. Make sure none of them do anything stupid." Daewon watched as the assault teams boarded their dropships. Hundreds of Coalition soldiers, the finest warriors from dozens of species. All of them stronger, faster, and tougher than any human. All of them heading into battle while humanity stayed behind. Safe. Protected. Useless. Daewon returned to the observation deck where the other humans had gathered. Together they watched the dropships launch toward the distant mining colony. Jiwoo stood beside him, her face pale. "Maybe they're right," she said softly. "Maybe we're not ready for this." Daewon said nothing. He just watched the colony growing larger on the view screen and wondered if humanity would ever get the chance to prove what they were capable of. The mining colony appeared on the view screen like a broken toy. Sections of the station vented atmosphere into space, trailing debris and frozen vapor. Emergency lights blinked frantically across the damaged hull. Daewon could see bodies floating in the void, though he tried not to look too closely at them. "First wave has landed," announced the tactical officer, a Thorian with 4 arms who managed multiple screens at once. "Heavy resistance." The Kreller dug in deep. The command center of the Stellar Lance was busy with activity. Officers monitored different aspects of the operation, while Admiral Vorn coordinated the assault from his command throne. The humans stood along the back wall, observers to a battle they weren't allowed to join. Hyunwoo clenched his jaw as he watched the tactical display. Each blue dot represented a Coalition soldier. Each red dot was a Krell raider. The blue dots kept disappearing. "They're getting slaughtered." "The Krell fight without fear," said one of the bridge officers, a female Quillari named Tessic. "They are born warriors. They live only for battle." Young Mai gripped the railing. "So what, our people fight too. Let us help them." "Your people are needed here," Admiral Vorn said without looking back. "If the ship is damaged, we need engineers to repair it. That is your role." On the main screen, combat footage showed the interior of the mining colony. Coalition soldiers advanced through smoke-filled corridors, firing energy weapons at massive shapes that moved too fast for the camera to track clearly. When a Krell appeared fully on screen, Day One understood why Thurok had been so adamant. The Krell were enormous. They stood nearly 3 meters tall, with thick gray skin that seemed to absorb weapon impacts. Their arms ended in claws that could tear through metal. They moved with shocking speed for their size, and they never stopped coming. Even when shot multiple times, they continued attacking until they physically could not move anymore. Day One watched a Vex soldier, nearly as large as Thurok, get grabbed by a Krell and thrown into a wall with enough force to leave a crater. The Vex didn't get up. Second wave deploying, the tactical officer announced. More dropships launched from the Stellar Lance, carrying reinforcements to the besieged colony. The battle dragged on for 2 hours. The coalition forces slowly pushed deeper into the colony, but the cost was terrible.
Casualties mounted with each corridor they cleared.
The medical bay was overflowing with wounded. Jiwoo had volunteered to help, and Day One could see her on the medical feed, working frantically to treat injuries that looked impossible to survive. "They're fighting in our style," Commander Thurok observed from his position near the Admiral. His scales were dark with stress. "The Krell are forcing close combat. Our weapons are designed for range. In tight quarters, they have every advantage." "Then adapt," Admiral Vorn said, though even his crystalline voice sounded strained. "Use explosives. Seal corridors. Do whatever is necessary." The third wave launched, then the fourth. Each time, Day One felt more useless. He was a trained soldier standing on the sidelines while others died. Youngmi was practically vibrating with frustration beside him. Hyunwoo had stopped watching the screens altogether. "Movement detected," the tactical officer suddenly announced. Multiple ships approaching from the asteroid field. The view screen shifted to show 3 Krell vessels emerging from behind a massive asteroid. They were crude ships, all sharp angles and exposed weapons, but they were fast. "Ambush," Admiral Vorn said calmly. "Battle stations. Prepare to engage." The Stellar Lance shuddered as the Krell ships opened fire. Energy weapons splashed against the shields. The Coalition ship returned fire, its larger cannons tearing chunks out of the nearest Krell vessel. But the other 2 ships split apart, circling around to attack from different angles. "Shields at 70%, someone called out. "Portside taking heavy fire." The ship rocked again. The lights flickered. Day One grabbed the railing to keep his balance. This was the closest he had been to actual combat since arriving in Coalition space, and it was nothing like the simulations. Another impact. The ship groaned. Emergency alerts began flashing on multiple screens. "Hull breach," the tactical officer announced. "Deck 7, sections 9 through 12. Emergency bulkhead sealing." "They're boarding us," Thurok growled. He immediately headed toward the exit. "Security teams to Deck 7. Repel the invaders." Day One moved to follow, but Admiral Vorn's voice stopped him. "Humans remain at your stations. Security will handle the breach." "Sir, I'm trained for this," Day One said. "You're trained to fight other humans. Stay here." The Admiral turned back to the battle outside. "Focus our fire on the lead ship. We need to—" The lights went out. For 3 seconds, the command center was in complete darkness. Then emergency lighting kicked in, bathing everything in red. "Main power is down," Youngmi said, already moving toward the engineering console. "Secondary reactor is compensating, but if we take another hit like that—" "Hull breach expanding," the tactical officer interrupted. "Deck 7 breach has spread to Deck 6. The Krell are inside and moving fast." Alarms screamed throughout the ship. On the security monitors, Day One could see Krell warriors pouring through the torn hull. They were in the ship. Coalition security teams rushed to meet them, but the fighting was desperate and chaotic. "They're heading for the reactor," Youngmi said, staring at the tactical display. "If they destroy it, the whole ship goes up." "Engineering teams seal off reactor access," Admiral Vorn ordered. "Security, hold them at Deck 6. Do not let them advance." But the security feeds showed the Coalition forces being overwhelmed. The Krell were in their element now, fighting in close quarters where their size and strength mattered most. Day One watched a security team of 4 Vex soldiers try to hold a corridor. The Krell tore through them in seconds. "They're through Deck 6, Thurok's voice came over the communicator. He sounded winded. "I need more troops." "The humans are not trained for this," Admiral Vorn finished. Another explosion rocked the ship. "Evacuation protocols stand by." "If we lose the reactor, we can't evacuate," Youngmi said, her fingers flying over the engineering console. "The reactor is already unstable. If we abandon it now, the containment will fail in less than 3 minutes." The explosion will destroy the colony and every ship in range. Silence fell over the command center. Everyone understood what that meant. Someone had to stay. Someone had to keep the reactor stable even with Krell raiders tearing through the ship. I'll go, Youngmi said. I can stabilize it. You won't make it past Deck 7, Tharok said over the comm. The corridors are full of Krell. Then send soldiers with me. I have no soldiers to spare. Every available unit is fighting to keep them from spreading further. Daewon looked at Hyunwoo, then at the other humans in the command center. Sun-hee, who worked in communications. Bo-ra, who had been trained as a Marine before the Coalition rejected her for combat duty. All of them looked back at him with the same expression. They had been waiting for this moment since they arrived. The chance to prove themselves. The chance to show the galaxy what humans could do. Maybe the chance to die trying. We'll escort her, Daewon said. He moved toward the weapons locker before anyone could stop him. Humans, gear up. Absolutely not, Admiral Vorn said. You will die. Maybe. Daewon pulled a plasma rifle from the rack. He had trained with similar weapons on Earth, though Coalition designs were more advanced. But Youngmi won't, and that reactor stays stable. Hyunwoo grabbed a weapon. So did Sun-hee. Bora took 2 rifles and a bandolier of grenades with a grim smile on her face. This is foolish, Tharok said. The Krell are between us and the reactor, Daewon interrupted. He checked his weapons charge. Full power. Enough to kill. We're going through them or we're dying. Either way, Youngmi gets to the reactor. Admiral Vorn stared at the humans. For a long moment, no one spoke. Another explosion echoed through the ship, closer this time. Go, the Admiral finally said. May your ancestors watch over you. The 5 humans left the command center at a run. Behind them, Quilnara watched them go, her compound eyes reflecting the red emergency lights. She pulled up her datapad and began recording. Something told her this would be important. In the corridor, Daewon could hear the sounds of battle getting closer. Screams, weapons fire, the terrible roar of Krell warriors in their fury. His hands were shaking. His heart was pounding so hard it hurt. Every instinct told him to run the other way, but Youngmi needed to reach that reactor. The ship needed to survive, and humanity needed to show the galaxy that they were more than just the weakest species in the Coalition. Daewon raised his weapon and headed toward the sound of the screaming, toward the Krell, toward the first real test of what humans could do. The corridor was dark except for the emergency lights. Daewon moved forward with his rifle raised, his breath coming fast and shallow. Behind him, Hyunwoo and Bo-ra covered the rear while Sun-hee stayed close to Youngmi in the center. They moved quickly but carefully, knowing that around any corner could be death. The sounds of fighting grew louder. Weapons fire, screaming. The horrible sound of metal being torn apart by claws. They passed bodies in the corridor. Coalition soldiers who had tried to stop the Krell advance. Daewon forced himself not to look too closely at them. Reactor access is 2 decks down, Youngmi whispered. If we can reach the maintenance shaft, I can get there without going through the main corridors. Where's the shaft? Daewon asked. 30 meters ahead, right side. They moved forward. The ship shuddered around them as the battle outside continued. Somewhere above, the Krell were still boarding. Somewhere below, the reactor was slowly becoming unstable. Daewon turned a corner and froze. 3 Krell warriors stood in the corridor ahead. They were tearing apart a security checkpoint, ripping the metal barriers aside like they were made of paper. One of them was holding a Vex soldier's weapon, studying it with what might have been curiosity before crushing it in his massive hand. The Krell were even bigger up close. Their gray skin was covered in scars and what looked like ritual markings. Their eyes were small and red, burning with something that might have been rage or might have just been hunger. When they breathed, steam came out of their nostrils. For a moment, everyone just stared at each other. Then the Krell roared and charged. Daewon opened fire. His plasma bolts hit the lead Krell in the chest, burning through its skin. The creature staggered but didn't stop. Bo-ra fired too, her shots hitting the same target. The Krell finally went down, but the other 2 were already moving. Impossibly fast for something so large. Back, Daewon shouted, but there was nowhere to go. The corridor was too narrow to retreat effectively. The Krell would catch them in seconds, so Daewon did the only thing he could think of. He ran forward to meet them. It was insane. It was suicidal. Every bit of his training told him not to close distance with an enemy twice his size. But if he didn't stop them here, they would reach Young Mai. They would kill her and everyone else, and the reactor would fail and thousands would die. The first Krell swung at him with claws that could tear through steel. Daewon ducked under the swing and fired his rifle point blank into the creature's stomach. The Krell howled, but its other hand caught Daewon across the chest, sending him crashing into the wall. Pain exploded through his ribs. He tasted blood. His vision went blurry for a second. The Krell loomed over him, raising both arms for a killing blow. Daewon's finger was still on the trigger. He held it down, emptying the entire power cell into the Krell's body at point-blank range. The creature's skin burned and split. It stumbled backward, but it still didn't fall. Something changed in Daewon then. Later, he wouldn't be able to explain it. His heart was pounding so hard he thought it might explode. His hands were shaking. He was pretty sure at least 2 of his ribs were broken. But instead of being afraid, instead of wanting to run, he felt something else. Rage. Pure, burning rage. The Krell had hurt him. It was trying to kill him. It was in the way, and Daewon refused to let it stop him. He dropped the empty rifle and grabbed a piece of broken metal from the destroyed security checkpoint. It was sharp on one end, jagged and crude. He didn't care. He drove it into the Krell's leg, twisting it. The creature roared and kicked him away, but Daewon rolled to his feet and came right back. The Krell backhanded him. He felt something crack in his face. Blood poured from his nose. He could barely see, but he grabbed onto the Krell's arm and used his own weight to drag it down. The creature tried to shake him off, but Daewon held on, climbing up its massive body like he was scaling a mountain. "What is he doing?" Sunhee whispered from behind them. Bora had already moved to engage the third Krell. She fought more tactically than Daewon, using her rifle to keep distance, but even she had to dodge constantly as the creature tried to grab her. Hyunwoo provided covering fire, his shots precise but seemingly ineffective against the Krell's thick hide. Daewon reached the wounded Krell's neck. He still had the piece of metal in his hand. He didn't think. He just drove it into the soft spot beneath the creature's jaw, pushing with all his strength. The Krell finally fell. Daewon fell with it, landing hard on the deck. Everything hurt. He could barely breathe. His vision kept fading in and out, but he stood up anyway. The third Krell saw him and hesitated, just for a moment. In that moment's hesitation, Bora got a clear shot at its head. Her plasma bolt burned through its eye. The creature collapsed. Silence fell in the corridor. The 3 Krell were dead. The humans were still alive, though barely. Daewon leaned against the wall, trying to catch his breath. Every breath hurt. He was pretty sure he was seriously injured. "Are you okay?" Young Mai asked, rushing to him. "Fine," Daewon lied. "Get to the reactor." They found the maintenance shaft where young Mi said it would be. She climbed inside while the others stood guard. Daewon tried to watch both directions of the corridor at once, but his vision kept blurring. He wiped blood from his face and picked up a fresh rifle from one of the dead security guards. "Daewon, you need medical attention," Hyunwoo said. "You're bleeding badly." Later. Daewon's voice came out rough. "We're not safe yet," he was right. More Krell appeared at the far end of the corridor. 4 of them this time moving in a pack. When they saw the dead bodies of their companions, they roared in fury. "Here they come," Bora said, raising her weapon. But before the Krell could charge, the ship's internal speakers crackled to life. "All Krell forces, retreat to your ships. The colony is ours. Fall back now." The Krell hesitated. They looked at each other, then at the humans, then back at their apparent victory on the colony. Finally, they turned and ran back the way they came. Within seconds, the corridor was empty except for the dead. "They're leaving," Sunhee said in disbelief. "Why are they leaving?" "The colony must have fallen," Hyunwoo said. "They got what they came for." In the command center, Quilnar was watching the security footage of the fight. She watched it 3 times, analyzing every second. The way the humans fought was unlike anything she had ever seen. They were outmatched in every physical way, yet they won. More than that, they kept fighting even when they should have stopped. The human called Daewon had sustained injuries that would have incapacitated any other species she knew. His body should have shut down from pain and trauma. Instead, he had climbed onto his enemy and killed it with a piece of scrap metal. She pulled up the biological data from his bioscan. His heart rate during the fight had reached levels that should have been fatal. His adrenaline levels were beyond anything she had ever measured. His brain activity showed patterns that suggested he was barely processing pain at all during the combat. It was as if his body had made a choice. Keep fighting or die, and his body chose fighting. Fascinating, she whispered. In the medical bay, Jiwoo was treating wounded coalition soldiers when the security team brought in Daewon. His face was covered in blood. His chest was bruised purple and black. He walked on his own power, though he was limping badly. Sit down before you fall down, Jiwoo ordered, grabbing her medical scanner. I'm fine, Daewon said. You have 2 broken ribs, a fractured cheekbone, and internal bleeding. Jiwoo pressed him down onto a medical bed. You're not fine. You should be unconscious. Young Mai got to the reactor. Yes, the ship is stable. Now shut up and let me work. As Jiwoo treated his wounds, Daewon finally let himself relax. The rage was fading now, replaced by exhaustion and pain. His whole body was shaking. He realized he was cold, so cold his teeth were chattering. Shock, Jiwoo said, covering him with a thermal blanket. Your body is crashing after the adrenaline surge. It's normal. Normal for humans, maybe. But as word spread through the ship about what happened on Deck 7, the other species began to realize that nothing about humans was normal. Not in the way they thought. Commander Tharok came to the medical bay an hour later. He stood at the entrance for a long time, just staring at Daewon. Finally, he approached. You killed 3 Krell, Tharok said. It wasn't a question. We killed 3 Krell, Daewon corrected. All of us together. I watched the security footage. Tharok's yellow eyes studied Daewon like he was seeing him for the first time. You fought like a berserker, like you felt no pain. I felt it, Daewon said quietly. I just couldn't stop. Why not? Daewon thought about that. Why hadn't he stopped? Why had he kept fighting even when every nerve in his body was screaming at him to run? Because someone had to, he finally said. Word spread through the coalition fleet faster than light. The humans had fought. More importantly, they had won. The security footage from Deck 7 played on every screen, passed from ship to ship. Everyone wanted to see the weak species that had killed 3 Krell warriors in close combat. In the command center of the Stellar Lance, Admiral Vorn called an emergency meeting. All department heads attended, along with the senior human staff. Daewon sat at the table with his face still bandaged and his ribs wrapped tight. Beside him, Bora had a bruised shoulder and Sunhee had cuts on her hands from handling broken metal. The situation has changed, Admiral Vorn said, his crystalline form reflecting the holographic display of the mining colony. The Krell have taken the colony. Our assault failed. Casualties are at 40%. We need a new strategy. We should call for reinforcements, suggested one of the tactical officers. The Krell are too entrenched to dislodge with our current forces. Reinforcements are 2 days away, Commander Tharok said. By then, the Krell will have stripped the colony and moved on. We need to act now. Admiral Vorn looked at the humans. Before we continue, I want to address what happened on Deck 7. The human crew performed beyond expectations. They saved this ship. The other officers made sounds of agreement. Some of them looked at the humans with respect now. Others still seemed uncertain. I want to propose something unusual, Tharok continued. Let the humans join the assault teams. They have proven they can fight. Silence filled the room. Several officers began to protest at once. They got lucky, one said. 3 Krell is not the same as a full assault. They're still weaker than other species, another added. In a prolonged engagement, they would fail. Sunhee spoke up from her seat. She was the tactical analyst, and she had been studying the Krell attack patterns since the battle started. May I say something? Admiral Vorn gestured for her to continue. The Krell fight with overwhelming force and aggression, Sunhee said, pulling up a tactical display. They rely on their size and strength to intimidate enemies. When opponents break and run, the Krell chase them down and slaughter them. But when opponents don't break, she showed the security footage of the fight on Deck 7. They get confused. What are you suggesting? Asked one of the officers. The Krell have never fought humans before. They don't know how to handle enemies that keep coming even when wounded. It disrupts their tactics. Sunhee zoomed in on the moment when the 3rd Krell hesitated before Bora shot it. Look here. This one stopped. Just for a second. It didn't understand why Daewon was still attacking after taking that much damage. Quilnara clicked her mandibles thoughtfully. She may be correct. Human psychology is unique among known species. Their fight-or-flight response includes a third option that most species lack. What they call adrenaline allows them to temporarily ignore pain and fear. It's a survival mechanism from their evolution as persistence hunters. Persistence hunters? Admiral Vorn asked. Jiwoo took over the explanation. As the xenobiologist, she had been preparing this presentation for weeks. On Earth, humans evolved to hunt by chasing prey for hours or even days. We didn't need to be faster or stronger than our prey. We just needed to never stop following them. Eventually, the prey would collapse from exhaustion. We're the only species in the coalition with this evolutionary background. She pulled up a comparison chart. Most predator species are ambush hunters or pack hunters. They strike hard and fast. If they fail, they retreat and try again later. But humans were pursuit hunters. We decided on a target and we followed it until either it died or we did. That mentality is still part of our psychology. The room was quiet as the officers absorbed this information. Finally, Admiral Vorn spoke. You're saying humans are dangerous because they don't know when to quit. We know when to quit, Day One said. We just choose not to. Tharok looked at Admiral Vorn. Let me take a mixed team to the colony. Human and coalition forces working together. If the humans fail, we're no worse off than before. If they succeed, he paused. We might actually win this. Admiral Vorn considered for a long moment. Then he nodded. Approved. Commander Tharok, assemble your team. Humans are authorized for combat operations. 3 hours later, Day-Wan stood in the armory with 15 other humans. They were gearing up alongside Vex, Quillari, and Thorian soldiers. The atmosphere was tense but different from before. The aliens no longer dismissed the humans outright. There was a wariness now. A respect. Bora checked her weapons methodically. Hyunwoo adjusted his armor plates. A new human had joined them, a woman named So Young who had been working in communications but had combat training. She looked nervous but determined. Tharok entered the armory. His armor was battle-scarred from the previous assault. Listen up. We're hitting the colony from 3 directions simultaneously. The Krell will be expecting a frontal assault. They won't expect us to come through the mining tunnels underneath. He pulled up a holographic map. Humans will lead the tunnel team. You're smaller than most coalition species, so you can move through the cramped spaces more easily. Your job is to reach the colony's main power core and disable it. In the dark, the Krell lose their advantage. Day One studied the map. The tunnels were narrow and winding, perfect for ambushes, perfect for the kind of close-quarters fighting where human persistence would matter more than Krell strength. What's the target after we cut the power? The colony's command center. The Krell leader will be there. Kill him and the rest will scatter. Tharok looked at each of the humans. This will be more dangerous than what you faced on the ship. You'll be outnumbered and surrounded. Can you handle it? Yes, sir, they answered in unison. The dropship ride to the colony was quiet. Daewon sat between Hyunwoo and Bora, checking his weapons one last time. His ribs still hurt, but Jiwoo had given him something for the pain. He could function. That was enough. You scared? Hyunwoo asked quietly. Terrified, Daewon admitted. You? Same. Hyunwoo managed a weak smile. But we did it once. We can do it again. The dropship docked with the mining entrance on the far side of the colony. The tunnels were exactly as advertised, narrow and dark and filled with the smell of burnt metal. The human team moved in first with coalition forces following behind. They encountered the first Krell patrol 15 minutes into the tunnels. 4 of them, too large to move easily in the confined space. The humans opened fire immediately, not giving the Krell time to close distance. In the narrow tunnel, the Krell couldn't dodge or maneuver. They fell quickly. Keep moving, Daewon ordered. They know we're here now. The tunnels became a maze of violence. Small groups of Krell tried to stop the human advance. But in the tight corridors, size became a disadvantage. The humans were faster, more mobile, and they fought with a ferocity that seemed to unnerve their enemies. When Krell tried to grab them, the humans would drop their weapons and fight with knives, fists, whatever they could reach. So Young took a claw strike that opened her arm from elbow to wrist. She wrapped it quickly with bandages and kept fighting. Hyunwoo got thrown into a wall hard enough to crack his helmet. He staggered up and shot the Krell that hit him. Bora ran out of ammunition and switched to using a piece of broken mining equipment as a club. They reached the power core an hour later. Half of them were wounded. All of them were exhausted. But they were still moving forward. Young Mai worked on the power core while the others formed a defensive perimeter. Krell reinforcements were coming. They could hear the roars echoing through the tunnels. How long? Daewon asked. 2 minutes, Young Mi said, her hands moving quickly over the controls. The Krell arrived in one massive wave, at least 20 of them, flooding into the power core chamber from 3 different tunnel entrances. Too many to fight, too many to stop. Day One raised his weapon. Beside him, the other humans did the same. They were going to die here. They all knew it. But young Me needed 2 more minutes, so they would buy her 2 minutes. The Krell charged. The humans opened fire, and for 2 minutes, they held the line. When the lights went out across the entire colony, when the power core finally shut down and plunged everything into darkness, there were 8 humans still standing in that chamber. They were bloody. They were broken. They were victorious. In the darkness, Day One could hear the Krell stumbling and roaring in confusion. But the humans had brought night vision equipment. They could see perfectly, and now they were the hunters. The darkness changed everything. Without power, the mining colony was a maze of black corridors and silent rooms. The Krell stumbled through it blindly, their roars of confusion echoing off metal walls. But the humans moved like ghosts, their night vision equipment turning the world into shades of green clarity. Day One led his team through the command level. Behind him, So Young, Hyunwoo, and 5 others followed in perfect silence. They had rehearsed this. They had trained for it. But more than that, something fundamental had shifted in how they fought. They weren't trying to prove themselves anymore. They were just doing what needed to be done. A Krell warrior appeared at the end of a corridor holding a crude torch. The firelight ruined his night vision but gave away his position. Day One made a hand signal. 2 humans flanked left, 2 flanked right. They moved around the Krell like water flowing around a stone, never giving him a target to focus on. When they fired from 4 directions at once. The Krell fell without making a sound. Command center is ahead, Hyunwoo whispered, checking his tactical display. Heavy presence. At least 30 Krell, maybe more. Coalition forces? Day One asked. 2 minutes behind us. Commander Tharok says hold position until they arrive. Day One looked at his team. They were exhausted. Half of them were wounded. So Young's arm was still bleeding through her bandages. But in their eyes, he saw the same determination he felt in his own chest. They had come this far. They weren't stopping now. We go in, Day One said, fast and quiet. Take out as many as we can before they realize we're there. That's insane, Hyunwoo said, but he was already checking his weapon. Let's do it. They entered the command center through a maintenance duct. The room was large, filled with computer terminals and holographic displays that were now dark and useless. The Krell had set up torches along the walls, creating pools of light that left most of the room in shadow. Perfect. Day One counted 23 Krell in the room. Most of them were warriors, but in the center, on a raised platform, stood one that was different. Larger, covered in more scars. Wearing what might have been crude armor made from the plating of ships. The Krell leader. The humans spread out along the upper walkways, taking positions in the shadows. Day One waited until everyone was in place. Then he gave the signal. The first shots came from the darkness like lightning. 3 Krell fell before the others even realized they were under attack. The room exploded into chaos. Krell warriors roared and charged in every direction trying to find their attackers. But the humans were already moving, already repositioning, always staying in the shadows. Bora dropped from an upper walkway onto a Krell's back, driving her knife into its neck before rolling away into the darkness. So Young used her last grenade to take out a cluster of 4 Krell bunched together. Hyunwoo and 2 others set up a crossfire that caught the Krell in a killing zone no matter which way they ran. It was brutal. It was efficient. It was nothing like how the Coalition fought. The aliens used tactics based on strength and honor, standing their ground and meeting enemies face to face. But humans had evolved differently. Humans were ambush predators when they needed to be. They were patient hunters. They were the species that had once chased animals for 3 days straight until the prey collapsed from exhaustion. The Krell leader roared commands, trying to organize his warriors. But his troops were panicking. They were used to being the monsters in the dark. Now something worse was hunting them. Day One moved through the chaos like a shadow. His body hurt everywhere. His broken ribs screamed with every breath. But his mind was crystal clear, focused on one single target. The leader. Kill him. And this ended. He climbed up to the platform where the Krell leader stood. The massive creature saw him coming and laughed, a deep rumbling sound that shook the air. You, the Krell said in broken Coalition standard. Little thing. You think you can kill me? Yes, Day One said simply. He raised his rifle. The Krell was faster than he expected. It lunged forward, knocking the rifle aside and grabbing Day One by the throat. The creature lifted him off the ground, squeezing. Day One felt his windpipe collapsing. His vision started to go dark at the edges. But he didn't panic. Couldn't panic. His body flooded with adrenaline again. That same chemical response that had kept him alive on Deck 7. The pain faded. The fear faded. There was only the target and what needed to be done. Day One pulled his sidearm and pressed it against the Krell leader's chest. He fired until the power cell was empty. The Krell's grip loosened. They fell together, crashing down from the platform onto the floor below. When Day One opened his eyes, he was lying on top of the dead Krell leader. His throat was on fire. He could barely breathe. But around him, the battle was over. The remaining Krell were fleeing, their leader dead, their advantage gone. Coalition forces poured into the command center. Commander Tharok was at the front, his weapon ready, but there was nothing left to fight. The humans had already won. In the medical bay later, Jiwoo treated the wounded while Quilnara observed. The insectoid scientist had been studying the humans throughout the entire battle, recording everything. Now she compiled her findings into a report that would change how the galaxy viewed humanity forever. The human species is unique among all known sentient life, she wrote. They possess no significant physical advantages. They are not particularly strong, fast, or durable compared to other coalition races. However, they possess psychological advantages that may be even more valuable than physical ones. When faced with extreme stress or danger, human biology triggers a response that temporarily suppresses pain reception and fear response while increasing focus and physical capability. This allows them to continue fighting long past the point where other species would be incapacitated. Combined with their evolved persistence hunting psychology, this makes them exceptionally dangerous in prolonged engagements. She paused, watching Day One as Jiwoo wrapped his throat in bandages. He should have been unconscious. His injuries were severe enough that any other species would require sedation. But he was awake and talking, asking about his team, making sure everyone else was okay. Quilnara added one more line to her report. Most critically, humans seem to possess an unusual capacity for determination. They do not fight because they are strong. They fight because they choose to. And that choice, more than any physical attribute, makes them formidable. 2 days later, the Coalition Council held an emergency session. Admiral Vorn presented the battle reports from the mining colony. The human contribution could not be ignored. 8 humans had held the power core against 20 Krell. 15 humans had cleared the command center and killed the Krell leader. Human casualties were high, but their success rate was exceptional. Commander Tharok stood before the council and did something unprecedented. He publicly apologized to the human delegation. I judged your species by physical metrics alone. I was wrong. Strength is not only measured in muscle and bone. Your people have shown courage and determination that equals or exceeds any species in the coalition. I formally request that humans be granted full combat status and integrated into all military operations. The council voted. The motion passed unanimously. Back on the Stellar Lance, Day One sat in the observation deck with the other human crew members. They watched the stars together, knowing that everything had changed. They were no longer the weak newcomers. They were coalition soldiers, full members, equals among the galaxy's finest. Does it feel different to you? So Young asked. Her arm was in a medical cast, but she would recover fully. Now that they respect us? Day One thought about that. Did it feel different? Yes and no. The galaxy's opinion of humanity had changed, but humanity itself had not. They were still the same people who had boarded this ship months ago. Still the same species that had climbed out of Earth's gravity well and reached for the stars despite having no natural advantages. We were always capable of this, he finally said. They just needed to see it. Jiwoo joined them, fresh from another shift in medical. She looked tired but satisfied. Quilnara published her research. It's spreading through the scientific community. Everyone wants to know more about human psychology now. Great, Hyunwoo muttered. Now we're lab experiments. Better than being considered useless, Bo-Ra said. She was cleaning her weapons, preparing for the next assignment. There would always be a next assignment. That was the nature of military service. Besides, let them study us. Maybe they'll learn something. Young Mi came running into the observation deck, her tablet clutched in her hands. You need to see this. 3 different coalition fleets have requested human personnel. They want us as special forces trainers. They want to learn how we fight. How we fight? Day One repeated. We just fought like humans always have. Exactly, Young Mi said. And apparently that's terrifying to the rest of the galaxy. Commander Therok found Daewon later that evening. The Vex warrior stood in the doorway looking uncomfortable. May I speak with you? Of course, sir. Therok entered and stood by the viewport looking out at the stars. I have fought for 30 years. I have faced every major threat the Coalition has encountered. I thought I understood warfare. I thought I understood strength. He turned to face Daewon. Your species taught me that I understood nothing.